So I want to tell you about a man who's standing alone in a lavender field at sunrise. And in about 90 seconds, he is going to witness something that changes his life forever. It's July 1st of 1965, and we are in southern France, and it's 5:45 in the morning. Maurice Masse is already out in his field. And it's a dry summer morning. No rain has fallen in this part of France for days. And the sun is barely up over the plateau. But the air has already got that sweet smell to it from the rows and rows of lavender planted in Maurice's field. And this lavender, it isn't just a decoration in this part of France. It's a cash crop. It goes for things like perfume, soaps, oils, and that basket of potpourri you always find in your grandmother's bathroom. It's the family business growing lavender, and it's been Maurice's family business for a long time. On this particular morning, Maurice is in a bad mood because for the last couple of weeks, somebody's been stealing from him. Out here in his field, before anybody gets up, apparently somebody is coming and picking over the lavender plants, pulling young shoots up from the dirt. Whole patches of lavender are just torn from the ground. Somebody keeps helping themselves to the Masse family lavender, and Maurice, he can't seem to catch him. He is done playing games. This morning, he's got a cigarette and a short fuse, and he is out before sunrise to finally nail whoever it is. And then he hears it. A sound. Mechanical, low, kind of a whistle. And his first thought is a helicopter. There's a pile of stones at the edge of the field, rocks and dirt that have been heaped up from working the land, and it's kind of blocking his view. So he steps around it, and there it is, sitting in the middle of his lavender, a small, dark, rounded thing, about the size of a small car. It's egg-shaped, up on four thin legs, and on top, there's a clear dome. Maurice thinks to himself, that ain't no helicopter, or I guess whatever the French equivalent of that statement would be. And next to it, two little figures bent over his plants, doing something. Well, this just sets Maurice off. And he thinks to himself, I caught the thieves red-handed. So he heads straight for them. But the closer he gets to the scene, the less things make sense. And as Maurice will find out, he isn't the first person to have walked upon such a scene.
Rick Birk is a pastor. His brother Rob isn't. Together, they go looking for the stories nobody's telling on Sunday morning. Strange history, unexplained encounters, and the corners of the world where things get weird. Welcome to the Parsonage Files.
Welcome to the Parsonage Files. I'm Rick. This is my brother Rob.
Hey, howdy.
Odd church history, paranormal cases, the mysteries that don't make it into the Sunday bulletin. That's what we talk about here on the Parsonage Files. Today, a French farmer, an American cop, and the same impossible thing both saw. 1 year and an ocean apart. All right, so let's get back to Maurice Masse for a second here. He was not the kind of guy that you would want to mess with. He was 41 years old. He had been born and raised in southern France, and for generations, his family had been lavender farmers. And you're already laughing, Rob.
Oh, oui, it's lavender for me. This is the most French thing I have ever heard, Pastor Rick.
So, believe it or not, during the Second World War, Masse had actually been a resistance fighter, and he had fought Nazis. So, this whole notion of going after some lavender thieves seemed like child's play to him.
So this guy is leaning into the French farmer stereotype. He's got a beret, a cigarette, and he's like, get all of my lavender. I'm going to go take care of you.
Yeah.
And he is not putting up with anyone stealing the family crop of lavender.
No, because, lavender farming sounds romantic.
Oh, that's exactly the thought I was having.
But it's not. It's hard, hot, physical work. And obviously, the real money is in the harvest. So the thought of a thief picking his field clean before he got a chance to harvest it is a real annoyance to Maurice. I mean, that's a whole year worth of his work just walking off, handful by handful. So when Maurice headed out into that field, he wasn't looking for weird. He headed out looking for whoever was robbing him blind, and he was going to show him a little bit of French justice. It's 5:45, and he came around the edge of that rock pile. There's that object, that egg-shaped dark chip with a dome on top, about the size of a car, standing on legs. And most accounts say that there were 4 legs. Some others say 6. Either way, it had legs under it. And the 2 little figures are bent over his Lavender. Now he thinks these are kids, right? So he keeps walking toward them, but faster. So he's 5-6 feet away when one of these little figures turns around and looks right at him. Turns out these are not kids. They are small, about the size of a child, maybe just under 4 feet tall or so. They've got big heads. They're bald, pale, smooth faces, big slanted eyes, tiny slits for mouths, no lips, and they're wearing tight green one-piece spacesuits. They are basically your stereotypical gray alien.
And they're there picking his lavender.
They are going through his lavender, and they are pulling it up by the handfuls. And they're making these sounds.
What kind of sounds are
They're
they
communicating with each other.
Okay.
Through low, grunting, gurgling noises. And when the alien sees Maurice coming at him, apparently he starts gurgling at the other one quicker.
This is coming out of their stomach?
It's kind of coming out of something.
Did they just need a Pepto-Bismol tablet? Or where are we talking here? Is it that kind of noise?
I just want to know how he knows the sound was coming from their stomach from that distance.
Right. How does that's a good point.
And if it wasn't coming from his stomach, maybe it was coming from a little lower.
Right. I mean, the distance between the stomach and something else is not that that far.
Now imagine the discovery of not just aliens, but aliens that communicated by farting at each other.
That is a communication style I was not expecting. Was it like gastrointestinal issues, or was it more of a grunting like...
Well, if you think about it, though, we talk by ejecting air out of the top of our digestive systems. They just go the other direction. I mean, it makes perfect biological sense.
Does it not make sense?
Is it any weirder to talk from where you eat than to talk from where you poop?
When you put it that way, no. I mean, how do I know how an alien's built? All right, so we have these aliens standing in the field grunting from some orifice.
They are grunting at each other, apparently quite alarmed to see Maurice approaching them in a very fast manner, and he is not happy. So as Maurice approaches these figures, one of them reaches in his little suit and he pulls out this tube-shaped object. It's about the size of a pencil.
Okay.
And he points it right at Maurice, and all of a sudden, he can't move. Like, he is literally frozen in place. He doesn't pass out. He doesn't fall down. He's just frozen in place like on Star Trek or TV or something.
Right.
So he'd say later that it wasn't fear that kept him from moving. He physically could not move. And then he said the 2 aliens kind of came up and looked him over.
Not creepy at all.
Not creepy at all. They then turn, walk back to that egg-shaped object, and they climb in. One account says a door slid shut behind them. He could see 2 little seats inside. And these little guys get into these seats, and then this egg, for the lack of a better term, lifts off into the air. There's no roar, no smoke. It just lifts off the ground and drifts a little bit, and it's gone.
Do they say nanu nanu as they fly off in their egg?
No reports of that, but accounts do say that it vanished about 20 meters away. And the official French file says it headed off toward the next town over.
To abduct another farmer.
Well, they didn't abduct the farmer. To be fair, they abducted his lavender.
Fair. They just froze the farmer.
They froze the farmer. They stole the plants. Maybe they're vegetarians. Ever thought about that?
Or just punks. I mean, it could just be jerks. We always give these aliens they're some type of biologist. Maybe they're just jerks. They're flying around like, oh, we can mess with these people because we can.
Well, have you ever thought about that?
They could just be alien jerks.
Yeah, we always want to say that like space aliens are like explorers, but maybe, yeah, they're just idiot guys who have nothing else to do but fly around.
The space chads.
Yeah, they're space chads, and they just fly around the galaxy punking people.
You know, it's just as logical as anything else.
It would explain things a lot better.
It kind of would.
It really would. Anyway, so the ship, it lifts off. There's no roar. There's no smoke. It just lifts off the field, drifts a little bit, and it's gone. Now, Masse is left standing there alone, frozen in his field. It took about 15 to 20 minutes before his body came back to normal. So Masse wanders into the nearby town, and the owner of the local cafe sees him looking a little bit worse for wear. So he invites him in, sits him down, and he gets the story out of him. Now, this is a small town, and word moves fast. And by the next day, the French National Police are out in that lavender field. So if Masse had just wandered into town with a wild story, this is probably where it would end. Weird tale, there's no proof. Somebody says they saw a spaceship, but that's not what happened, because that lavender field, it kept the receipts, if you will. Start with the lavender where that ship had been sitting. It died. And not just that summer. Reports say that it wouldn't grow back there for years. Some say as much as a decade. And some say he never got lavender to grow on that spot ever again.
Hey, we laugh, but that could have been devastating.
So there was actually trace evidence left behind in the field. Right where that egg-shaped craft had sat, there was a hole about 6-8 inches wide, about 1.5 feet deep, and then there were 4 marks that looked like landing gear. And the interesting thing is that the soil around each of those landing marks was damp.
Weren't they in a drought?
Oh, well, they weren't in a drought, but it hadn't rained in a number of days. And these spots were almost muddy, if you will. And later on, those patches would get as hard as cement. So there were also reports that the soil chemistry was off. High calcium, that kind of thing. But the hole, the marks, the dead lavender, the police photographed all of it. They measured it, they wrote reports, and they started a file about it.
So there's an official police file about this incident.
Absolutely.
Photographs and everything?
Absolutely. And it didn't stop there. So UFO researchers picked up on it fast. French researchers such as Ami Michel and Jacques Vallée studied it intensely.
Did it end up in the United States record?
The case turned up in a 1969 Library of Congress bibliography that had been put together for the U.S. Air Force. And inside of about 4 years, the Valensole Incident was the subject of some pretty serious research. And most people don't realize this, but France has an official government UFO office, a real one, run out of their space agency. Now, it's gone by a few names over the years. These days, it's Gaipan. And in 2015, the office put the whole Valensole case into its public files with a classification of D.
And that means what?
Unknown phenomena.
So to summarize, the official French agency set up to investigate UFOs gathered all this data, put it together, said, yep, something happened, weird, and moved on in life.
Wow, I'm so glad the United States doesn't do stuff like that.
Right?
Now, before we get too excited about it being categorized as an unexplained phenomena, we have to realize that nobody reinvestigated this in 2015 to give it that
Status.
right. So the verdict rides on the original French state police files. And you have to remember, that wasn't a modern lab, and it certainly wasn't a modern lab confirming little green men.
That is not the purpose of the state police.
Right. But still, the French government looked at this and said, we don't know what it is or what happened here. And Masse, he came out of this whole event changed. About 4 days after the encounter, he started sleeping. I mean, a lot. Some accounts say he couldn't stay awake more than a few hours at a stretch. Others say he slept for 12 hours plus a day for months, and no doctor could explain it.
But really, isn't that just called middle age?
Possibly. However, Maurice also stopped talking about the story. He told the police what happened in the field. He cooperated completely with their investigation, but some accounts say that he held some things back, that he believed something passed between him and those figures out there in the field. Not words, thoughts, ideas.
Telepathy?
So his wife said later that he treated that landing spot as sacred, and he believed that that spot should remain in the family under its protection. Now, sacred, the word means something set apart, holy, set aside for something higher than yourself and worth reverence. That's not a word a lavender farmer throws around about a patch of dirt. So why would Masse hold reverence for that spot? Well, I don't know. Maybe because of what it did to him. You know, it's easy to walk through life as if we're the center of the whole thing. But then something lands in your field that you can't explain, you can't control, can't fit into a single thing you thought you knew, and suddenly the world is a lot bigger than you are. And that'll shake a person down to the foundation. And we also can't forget that they froze him in place for 20 minutes.
Gotta do it to her.
It turns out serious people have noticed this same kind of pattern. Diana Pasluka, a religion professor at UNC Wilmington, and Jeffrey Kripal over at Rice University, both of them have written recently saying the same thing, that UFO encounters can have profound religious impact on people. People walk away changed. Their sense of reality cracks open and never quite closes back up, which for a guy who stands in a pulpit on Sundays is a strange and kind of wonderful thing to think about, you know?
Yeah, that is interesting.
Investigators were compiling lists of sightings from all over. Landed objects, little occupants, same basic scene from different countries. And one of them really intrigued Maurice. During an interview, somebody showed him a drawing. It came from a case the year before, in 1964, from Socorro, New Mexico. And there, a police officer named Lonnie Zamora reported a landed object out by the highway. He said it was egg-shaped, up on legs, and two figures standing next to it. And when the interviewers handed Maurice the drawing, they said he went quiet, and then he said, "Somebody else has seen my UFO."
Really?
Yeah. Now, it obviously doesn't prove connection.
No.
But think about what it does mean. Two men who never met, a French lavender farmer and an American cop, describing the same impossible thing. Different countries, a year apart, neither one knew the other was alive. We did a whole episode on Lonnie Zamora a couple of weeks ago. And if you haven't seen it, go back and find it, because Socorro's got its own strange details. And they actually hold up better all these years later than what you would think.
It's a great story.
It's a great story. So what happened in that lavender field July 1st of 1965? Well, what we really know is this. A respected farmer walked out into his field to catch what he thought was a crop thief. And he ended up running into something that he never could fully explain. And he ended up reporting it that very same morning, and he never really changed his story. The police came out and documented real physical trace evidence that they couldn't account for. And 50 years later, the French government looked at this case again and called it simply unidentified. Now, what we don't have, we don't know where those little figures and their craft came from. We also don't know if any telepathic communication happened between Masse and those little figures. And perhaps most intriguingly, we don't know why visitors from someplace else would be interested in Lavender.
So basically, we have a lot of we don't knows.
We do. I have no idea. Maybe those aliens, if you will, were really into Sensi or something along those lines. We just don't know what happened. But we do know that this isn't a story from some guy who just saw some swamp gas and decided to call a press conference about it. It's a documented, officially unsolved mystery out of the south of France. One farmer, one field, one specific morning, and a question nobody's answered in 60 years. Gaipan has said that this case is unidentified. Not aliens, not a hoax, not a helicopter, just simply unidentified. Not enough information to render an opinion. What this reminds me, though, is that the world God made is a lot stranger than we like to admit.
Agreed. I've been to the state fair.
That'll definitely make you appreciate the variety and weirdness of God's creation. So this has been the Parsonage Files. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it, drop a comment, we read them all, and subscribe so you will be here for the next episode. Until next time, this is Pastor Rick.
And I'm Rob.
Take care.